Coming up on this Friday edition of Daybreak's, hopes are high for improved inter-Korean ties in 2015 as the leaders of both Koreas express their openness to holding top-level talks. South Korea posts record exports of over $570 billion last year, despite slow economic growth in China and a sluggish recovery in Europe. Plus, the death toll from the stampede in Shanghai rises to 36. Police deny reports that fake banknotes thrown from a building added to the rush. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Friday, January 2nd, 2015 here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. And we begin with new hopes in the new year for an improvement in inter-Korean ties, responding to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's New Year's speech, in which he said there was no reason not to hold the highest level talks if the conditions are ripe. South Korea said it was willing and ready. Now, Connie Lee has our top story.
Could an inter-Korean summit happen soon? That's what the South Korean government is hoping in light of the North Korean leader's latest speech.
We see North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's speech as sincere and significant. Our government is looking forward to any form of inter-Korean talks in the near future.
In Kim Jong-un's nationally televised New Year's speech, he said he's open to talks with Seoul, even possibly with President Park Geun-hye.
If the atmosphere and environment are there, there is no reason not to hold a high-level summit. We will make every effort to advance dialogue and cooperation.
As North Koreans ring in the new year, Kim used his third annual address to speak on different issues, but he spent the most time talking about improving ties with South Korea. Seoul is now urging Pyongyang to take steps to normalize relations, such as responding to its earlier proposal to hold talks this month. The North Korean leader, however, also criticized South Korea's military exercises with the U.S., calling them a source of tension. In addition to a possible meeting with South Korea, Kim also spoke about Pyongyang's plans to develop special economic and tourist zones in the new year. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Now, President Park Geun-hye spent her first morning of 2015 visiting the Seoul National Cemetery. The visit came in what is now the 70th year anniversary of South Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule. In a message she left inside a scrapbook at the cemetery, the president called for peace and prosperity on the Korean peninsula in the new year. Earlier, in a message for South Korea's military, President Park called on troops to maintain their readiness. She said that strong security was a prerequisite for unification with North Korea. And President Park and her close aides are putting the finishing touches on her upcoming speech and press conference to mark her third year in office. Watchers say the Korean leader will focus on ways to revitalize the economy and improve the lives of ordinary people. Our Son Jung-in reports.
The presidential office is making its final preparation for the upcoming New Year's press conference by President Park Geun-hye. The format is expected to be similar to last year, so she will likely first lay out her plans and policy directions for 2015 before answering questions from reporters. Considering the circumstances at the National Assembly, the conference is expected to take place around January 12th. President Park will likely express her strong will to revitalize the economy through innovation and regulatory reforms. She is also forecast to focus on the current status of reform in sectors related to labor, finance, pensions, and public institutions.
깨끗하고 안전하고 신뢰할 수 있는 사회로 나아가기 위해 오랫동안 쌓여온 적폐를 해소하는 일도 흔들림 없이 추진할 것입니다.
With this year marking the 70th anniversary of the nation's independence from Japan's colonial rule, she will also address peace on the Korean peninsula by trying to speed up the process of reunification and normalizing inter-Korean relations. In regards to the recent allegations that one of her former aides meddled in state affairs, some pundits say she will put the accusations aside since she already said they were unfounded rumors. Others, however, say the president may use the opportunity to demonstrate her will to shake up her inner circle of aides. 손정인, Arirang News.
Now on to the latest on the Air Asia crash, and a funeral has been held for a flight attendant from the flight that crashed into the Java Sea last week. The body of the 49-year-old Hatiya Lutfa Hamid was handed over to her family on Thursday at a ceremony attended by families and friends in the Indonesian city of Surabaya. 9 bodies have been recovered so far, but bad weather continues to hamper the search for the victims and the plane's black box. You're seeing pictures of the funeral ceremony there. The jet went down with 162 people on board and never issued a distress call. Reuters reports that some investigators believe the plane may have stalled as the pilot climbed too steeply while trying to avoid a storm. Now, the same hackers that wreaked havoc on Sony Pictures in recent weeks have reportedly threatened an American news media organization. This according to a recent FBI bulletin that was obtained by the online publication The Intercept. It says the Guardians of Peace hacker group, which claimed responsibility for the Sony attack, also warned an unnamed news organization of a possible attack. US authorities have not commented publicly on that threat, though. The FBI says North Korea was behind the Sony hacking back in November. A diplomatic source familiar with the investigation says the FBI has linked the attack to North Korea's surveillance authority, which used a China-based IP address. The US is reportedly asking China for help in their probe. And China is helping South Korea in the probe of their own because authorities in China have launched an investigation into Chinese IP addresses that were believed to be the source of the recent hacking of nuclear reactors right here in South Korea. Now, this comes after the Korean government asked relevant agencies in China to help identify the possible culprits behind this attack, which is believed to have originated in the northeastern Chinese city of Shenyang. North Korean hackers are thought to operate in that city. That said, it's still not clear who was behind the hack that leaked the designs of 2 reactors, as well as the personal data of employees at South Korea's state-run nuclear power agency. Korean officials may be dispatched to Shenyang if China confirms the hack attack was launched from that city. Last month, a hacker self-identified as the president of an anti-nuclear activist group had threatened to destroy reactors if they were not shut down.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, despite the global economic slowdown last year, 2014, Korea sealed the so-called Triple Crown in trade last year. Korea topped the $1 trillion mark in trade volume for the 4th consecutive year and set records both in terms of total exports and trade surplus, our Kim Min-ji reports.
2014 was another golden year for Korean trade, with new records being set in exports, trade volume, and trade surplus. According to the Trade Ministry, overall exports came to nearly $580 billion, which is up 2.4% from a year ago. Imports rose 2% to about $530 billion. Trade volume reached a record high and topped the $1 trillion mark for the 4th straight year, while the trade surplus also rose to a new record of nearly $50 billion. Exports to the U.S. rose the most at 13.4%, followed by the European Union and ASEAN member nations. But exports to China, Korea's largest trading partner, edged down slightly due to the increased competitiveness of local products. Shipments to Japan also slumped nearly 7% on the back of the weak yen. Meanwhile, the overall rise in exports was driven by semiconductors, with shipments climbing nearly 10% to about $63 billion. Exports of steel products, mobile phones, and shipping also saw steady rises. Shipments of petroleum-related goods, however, fell 3% due to slumping crude prices. As for 2015, the Trade Ministry expects another fruitful year driven by the positive effects of the country's free trade agreements. Outbound shipments are forecast to jump nearly 4% on year to almost $600 billion. Imports are also expected to gain just over 3% to about $540 billion. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Staying with economic news, and Korea's finance minister says the recent slumping crude prices could end up benefiting the nation's economy because it's going to boost domestic demand and industrial competitiveness. Speaking in Incheon on New Year's Day, Choi Kyung-hwan said that if oil prices fall by around a third, each household would be able to save roughly $500 in expenses each year. Crude prices have been on a downward spiral in recent months due to oversupply. The minister added that domestic demand and exports will improve in 2015, even from those record highs, as the global economy hopefully recovers. The minister also said that he would do his best to boost the economy and carry out structural reforms in the labour, finance, education and public sectors. Now, as the year ticked over to 2015, a number of big changes came into effect in Korea. Most notably was the doubling in price of cigarettes. There was also the introduction of an almost blanket ban on smoking in enclosed public places and the expansion of welfare benefits for those most in need. Our Ji Myung-gil reports.
It isn't going to be a good start to the year for smokers in the nation, as the price of a pack jumps on New Year's Day. The first tobacco price hike in a decade sees prices rise by around $1.80. That brings the average cost of a pack of cigarettes to over $4. And it doesn't stop there either. Smoking is now completely banned in all restaurants nationwide. People caught lighting up in prohibited zones could be slapped with a fine of up to $90. These measures were unveiled by the government in September in an attempt to reduce the country's high smoking rate. There are more changes too. From the start of the new year, families facing severe financial hardships will receive more help from the government as it expands the scope of people who can apply for welfare benefits. This includes a stronger safety net for destitute families. The changes were proposed after a mother and her 2 daughters committed suicide in February because of financial troubles. Korea has also upped efforts to curb greenhouse gas emissions. The government is making local companies follow a trading scheme, which requires businesses to reduce emissions or buy credits if they have difficulty meeting the targets. They'll be subject to emission restrictions from 2015 through 2017. The aggregate emissions quota for more than 500 businesses has been set at nearly 1.6 billion tons over the next 3 years. And from January 1st, tourists will be able to make use of a clearer and more convenient standard to help them select a suitable hotel. The Tourism Ministry has adopted the internationally recognized 5-star rating system. The move comes as Korea aims to better inform the 14 million foreign tourists that visit the country each year. Since 1999, hotel ratings in Korea have been voluntary and self-determined, garnering criticism and consumer complaints for being inconsistent and often inflated. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, Koreans are looking forward to what's in store for 2015, also known as the Year of the Sheep. For a look at how some local sheep are getting ready to make their most of their time in the spotlight, our Im Yoon-hee reports.
The sheep at this zoo have gone all out, dressed up in cute rainbow-striped clothes. Wearing embroidered hairbands and even pink blush on their cheeks, they're ready to meet the visitors, who came to see them to mark the Year of the Sheep. They move through the fence at the sound of the bell. Some kids get scared and walk backward out of fear, while others can't take their hands off their plump wool.
The sheep feels very soft and nice. I have clothes made of wool, but it feels a lot different touching it with my own hands.
The animal is recognized as a source of kindness, humility, and respect for parents, as seen from a young sheep that kneels down for their mother's milk.
Sheep are very smart. They can recognize their names and their keeper's voice. I feel proud when they hear me calling them and follow me.
It's hoped that the year of the sheep will be calmer than 2014 and bring peaceful and compassionate time, like the spirit the animal symbolizes. Im Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
Well, it's time now for a look through the global headlines. We're following this first Friday of 2015 here in Seoul. For that, we welcome back Eunice Kim, who's been on a nice vacation. She's standing by at the news center. Welcome back, Eunice.
And thank you, Mark. Good morning. We'll begin with an update on the New Year's stampede in Shanghai, China, that ended with 36 people dead. Chinese President Xi Jinping has ordered an investigation into what exactly happened in the city's historic Bund district on New Year's Eve that caused a huge crowd to make a rush, crushing dozens of people and also injuring 47 others. The probe, reported by state TV, will likely look into whether there were enough police officers to control the thousands of people outside to count down to the new year. The deadly stampede happened about 25 minutes to midnight leading into Thursday. Shanghai police in a statement denied earlier social media reports that the rush was triggered by people trying to collect fake cash dropped from the balcony of a nearby nightclub. Chinese media also reported other New Year's Day festivities in Shanghai were canceled following the deadly stampede. January 1st also marked the Roman Catholic Church's World Day of Peace. And to mark the occasion, Pope Francis called for people from all religions and cultures to bring human trafficking to an end. In his first Mass of the year at St. Peter's Basilica, the pontiff said everyone has a God-given right to be free and a calling to fight modern-day slavery. Following the Mass in his New Year's address, Pope Francis also underlined that peace was always possible, but that it must be sought. Almost 36 million people are estimated to be living in slavery today as manual laborers and in brothels, according to Australian-based group Walk Free Foundation. Now we are into our second day of 2015 here in Korea, but in Syria, 2014 was its deadliest year in the past 4 years of conflict, recording 76,000 deaths in the calendar year. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said some 23% of those killed, more than 17,000 people, were civilians, which included 3,500 children. Some of the deaths were attributed to strikes by the Islamic State group and sectarian violence in Iraq. Airstrikes continue against IS targets in Syria as well as in Iraq. And finally, Egypt's highest court has accepted an appeal request and ordered a retrial in the case of 3 Al Jazeera journalists. Peter Grust, Mohammed Fadal Fahmy, and Bar Mohammed have been jailed for spreading false news and supporting the now-banned Muslim Brotherhood. They had been handed prison sentences of between 7 to 10 years back in June for their alleged crimes. Al Jazeera has called for the prompt release of the journalists, who have maintained they were simply reporting the news.
And TJ on Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with the Korean national football team, as manager Uli Stilike and crew look to finalize their preparations for the upcoming Asian Cup with a friendly against Saudi Arabia on Sunday. Now, with the Asian Cup in Australia kicking off in a week's time, the Korean national football team looks questionable with the lack of offense despite a rather stacked midfield. And with the 69th ranked Taeguk Warriors facing off against the 102nd ranked Saudi Arabia on Sunday, the focus will be on the midfielders connecting with the strikers, as Uli Stilike hopes the offense won't be a problem during their quest for their first Asian Cup title in 55 years. And now staying with football, FIFA has chosen 16 players to look forward to in the new year. And one of those players, well, sensational Son Heung-min. Now with Son Heung-min enjoying a great season so far, scoring 11 goals with Bayer Leverkusen, FIFA has chosen the national team midfielder as one of the 16 players to look forward to in 2015. Now alongside Son Heung-min are players like Memphis Depay and Mario Götze, as Son Heung-min hopes to begin the new year by winning the Asian Cup in Australia. Now moving over to baseball this time, where two legends in the sport are set to receive the Pioneer of Baseball award from the Office of Major League Baseball. And the two legends are former teammates in Park Chan-ho and Hideo Nomo, who both played for the LA Dodgers in the 90s. The two pitchers will be honored by Bud Selig during the commissioner's retirement ceremony on the 18th in New York City. Now, Park Chan-ho was the first Korean player in the major leagues, winning 124 games in 17 seasons, while Hideo Nomo became the first Japanese major leaguer in 30 years, as he won the 1995 Rookie of the Year honors and threw 2 no-hitters during his career. And now finishing things off in Formula One racing, as the Korean Grand Prix was taken out of the 2015 F1 calendar once again. Now, despite the Korean Grand Prix being included in the provisional 2015 calendar last month, the latest 2015 calendar has the unpopular event scrapped for the upcoming season. Despite Formula One hoping to have 21 races in the new season, the calendar has 20 races throughout the year, with the Korean Grand Prix being left off in the season. Despite high hopes for the event returning amongst the F1 fans in the nation, the ongoing financial problems might most likely scrap the race for good. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
It's a cloudy morning here in Korea. Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. The cold weather continues with temperatures 3 to 4 times below the seasonal average today. Meanwhile, there is a cold wave advisory in effect in the central region, with wind chill feeling like -15 degrees. And it looks like we're expecting flakes of snow as well this morning for some regions, including here in Seoul. And besides the cold wave, more advisories are in effect across the nation, and such as dry weather advisory continues along the east coast of the peninsula, and heavy snowfall is expected in some areas of Jeollabdo provinces. And now to our readings for today. Seoul will peak to -1 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak up to 4 and 5 degrees. And to other regions such as Jeju Island gets up to 8, Dokdo heads down to -1, while Mangungang is going to be much colder at -6 degrees. And that's all for now, Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that's going to do it for now for the first daybreak of 2015. Have a wonderful rest of the year. And of course, we'll be back every single weekday to give you more news. Have a great day. Korea Today coming up at 7 a.m. Korea time. Until then, goodbye.